All right, hello everyone from Hawaii. I am excited to be here today with my new friend Dominique Dom Brightmon, and I'm excited to have you on the show, my man. Welcome and thank you for joining us today, buddy.
Woohoo! It's good to be on the show with you, my man. That's what I'm
Where
talking
are you?
about.
Where are you at?
Me, I'm from the land of charm, crime, and crab cakes, Baltimore, Maryland, USA.
Oh man, I'll be up in DC in February for a week.
Oh,
Maybe we gotta
oh,
maybe we gotta hang out, buddy. And let me just say, I'm here in Hawaii. I just flew in last night from Oregon, which was in the beginning of last week. It was in
wow.
the teens. We left. It was in the 50s, and it was
Oh,
miserably cold. But our kids are up there, and we spent a week with them, spent Christmas with them. So it's good to be home, but we miss the kids. So anyway, for all of you out there, this is Dominique Brightmon. We call him Dom. And I'm going to read his bio because I don't want to mess it up. He's a certified self leadership expert with the John Maxwell Team from Baltimore, Maryland, that empowers and equips others to share their stories. And we all know John Maxwell. This guy has written not one book. He's not written, well, he's written two books and contributed to a third, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, followed up by a bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success, and assisted with the book Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. I am in the process of getting these books. I was hoping to get them before you were on. He also have he has his own podcast, Going North, which I encourage all of you to tune in and subscribe. But I'm going to let him tell his story. Dom, welcome to the show, my man.
woohoo! Thanks again for having me, my man, and glad you made it back from Oregon, man. Like, winter came all at once last weekend at the time of this recording.
It was. I was watching the news at night. It wasn't just Oregon. It seemed like the whole country just got hit with that cold chill or whatever you call it up there. See, over here, it's 80 degrees right now, and it's always 70s and 80s. At night, it might get really cold. We pull out the blankets at 69, but typically, man, it's in the 70s and 80s. But it's good to be back. So I gotta ask, man. You've written a couple of books. Wrote a third. What's your deal, man? You like writing? You like reading? What got you to writing your books?
Yep, sure thing. Well, back in 2013, it was my year of rebirth when I started doing the whole one word a year thing where you find your one word for the year. Well, I call them New Year's mantras because my themes for the year, they can be one or three words. Like, hey, just keep it nice and simple. And I found self-development and discovered that, hey, I could read books that I actually enjoy reading. And especially when you read books that are nonfiction, self-help books, you eventually become a guinea pig. And then after a while, when you do some of the activities and you take action, you eventually have those experiments, you have some proof. And one of those symbols of proof was joining Toastmasters and giving dozens of talks and networking with people to a point where I met a lady who actually dared me to write a book of my own since I was handing out a reading list to people as opposed to business cards because they end up forgotten or in the trash or forgotten then in the trash. And she was like, "Hey, how about a year from today?" This was like 2015, November 1st. And she was like, "Hey, how about a year from today you write and publish your own book?" And I'm like, I'm freaking 20 freaking 3 at the time. Like, no, I'm gonna write about it. And at first, I didn't accept the dare, but after some soul search, I realized, you know what? I wrote in my own personal obituary that I was going to be a best-selling author of multiple books. So, hey, this is the gateway to becoming a published author. So, even though that day I didn't shake on the deal, I still, in my mind, took her up on the challenge. And my first book was published, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself. And the story's still being told today.
All the links are going to be in the description and the show notes for all of our listeners. So you have a chance to get your copies of Dom's book. But, I've read a little bit about you in preparation for this interview, and find you to be a very positive guy. In a time in our world where there's so many things to derail us from being positive. It's just, we were talking earlier with a friend about the media. It's horrible. Everything that comes across in the media is negative. How did you get that positive personality, and how do you maintain it on a day-to-day basis?
Yep, sure thing. Well, one thing I like to do is to focus on doing good. Definitely focus on doing good and focusing on the good is really as many times as possible. Can't say at all times because it's life. There are going to be setbacks that show up along the way. There's going to be times where you have to realize, hey, we're all still human. There's going to be times of grief, times where not only setbacks happen, but yeah, you're going to be sad too. Like nobody is going to feel happy all the time. Like, hey, sugar rainbows and three unicorns all at once is not going to happen all at once. So, starting my day off on a positive note after waking up with the wonderful alarm clock, usually just focusing on a positive message, like opening up the YouTube, going into my motivational playlist and listening to some great music to get me hype for the day or heck, even something funny for the day. And then just making sure I not even look at the news. I have stopped watching the news for years on end if my outlook on life has changed for the better. Now, granted, I still get headlines every now and then just doing it through like Google headlines and occasionally like Twitter headlines, see what's popular there and seeing if it applies. But like just staying abreast on information doesn't mean watching just the news when you first wake up because there's a reason why the TV was originally called and still called to this day television programming because they're programming your mind to pay attention to the messages that they put in front of you. But we're in a day and age where you have a much bigger choice of what you put in front of you. And you can choose to get your news from other sources as opposed to just the random local news on your television. Like you can scroll online or heck, even subscribe to different websites or whatever and get your news there. And then also reading something positive too. I always like to have an inspirational quote in front of me. I keep sticky notes all around my office space to really get me in a positive state of mind. And it really all involves having your environment ready to be focused on the good as opposed to just focusing on the bad and staying on the bad. Like there's going to be bad that'll come, but you can turn it into good when you focus on seeing setbacks as a setup for a story forward.
Tell you a funny story. Back in the 80s, I joined this business called Amway. Everybody's heard of Amway, but I remember going to my first conference, and that was the rule number one: don't watch the news in the morning. Similar to what you were saying, focus on the news that you need to have, but stay away from the broadcast news because it's actually depressing. It's quite depressing. It's like I said earlier, in the world that we live in today, it's unfortunate. Quick question: you have a podcast. I'm starting out. I've had a YouTube channel for years and years and years, and we've done video podcasts, but I'm venturing out on this new audio podcast career. And you have one, Going North. How did that come about? What made you decide I'm going to start a Going North podcast?
Yep, sure thing. Well, the podcast started because the book publishing was a side quest for me at first because even though it was a goal of mine to finish before my life is over, which I hope is decades from now still, is that I actually wanted to start a podcast before writing a book. And a few months after Going North was published, I sadly lost my dad to a long battle with dementia because I was part-time caregiver for him along with my mom as well as my older brother. And we were taking care of him for about a good, I'd say 5 years when it really got really bad because 2012 is when it really got serious and we had to take away his license. And a few months after his passing, I realized like, oh wow, I probably should get back to marketing my book because I really just took a break from it, dealing with some grief that I thought I didn't have at the time. I wasn't aware about at the time. I realized, hey, my dad was a hardworking man and he was a veteran for the US of A. He actually was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, and he was a decorated soldier in the US Army as a paratrooper, and he was still volunteering for his church even in his early 80s still. So it felt like, you know what? With that role model of hard work, I should probably get back to work. And July 2017, I had the idea to basically start a show to market my books. But I decided to take it even deeper and interview other authors so that way I can learn from them. They can have a platform to get their voices heard, get their feet while they're being interviewed. And also, it also helps to not only build my influence, but also help others to grow and build their influence as well. Because when you start a podcast and you're consistent with it, you're basically a media source for people, for folks that follow you in your journey along the way, and for the folks that'll eventually cling to what you do after a while. And it's just been one heck of a journey where 2017 September it started, and I originally started like, you know what, I think I'll do a one episode a week. It'll go up every Wednesday. Well, the launch day came and of September 6th, and there were no episodes out because I didn't know how the heck to set up an RSS feed. So was delayed a week and moved over to SoundCloud for a bit. And then 7 episodes launched on the 14th of that day. And then stayed consistent to a point now where episodes go out every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday with an average of 5 to 7,000 downloads a month, interviewing authors all over the planet. So it's been one heck of a journey of just, hey, I wanted to market my book, my business, build my brand, but I decided to come from a place of service, and 1,000 flowers just blossomed from it, where I'm connecting with folks in Australia, of all places, and all over the globe, where I thought, oh, I was going to view a few people maybe in Maryland or the US of A, but no, it's grown. It's grown.
Yeah, first of all, so sorry for the loss of your dad. That is just sad, but what an amazing man he sounds like, and I can see where you get your work ethic from now. It's quite clear. But yeah, podcasting. I've always had a YouTube channel and started back probably about 5 years ago, once a week, and then when COVID hit, I took it to 7 days a week, bringing on experts from around the state, around the country. Actually, we even had guests from South Korea and other parts of the country or the world. And we picked up a very strong and loyal following because they, as you said, it's a media source. It was an opportunity in Hawaii where the messages were coming in from the state and the counties, and it was very confusing. Our show provided a consistent base of factual data that was being presented by experts. They appreciated that. I wanted to take it another step further and say, hey, let's go. Our whole theme was informing and educating, and maybe now we can use this same platform, the same medium, to go out and help people. And that's obviously how Feed Your Mind was born. And we're just starting. I'm excited, and excited again to have you on. Today's day and age, we have a lot of millennials, a lot of teenagers that are out really capitalizing on social media, on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. And what's your advice to these guys, these people that are out there, and some of them being very, very successful? What would your advice be to, in fact, anyone that's considering an opportunity to go out and share their knowledge, share their information?
Good question. Definitely. One of the greatest gifts I received in my lifetime that I'm grateful for is having great mentors, and mentors that would actually encourage me. And for those who have mentors in your life, like, thank them if they're still around, because mentors are a blessing to have. They're definitely a gift. And for those who are making a positive difference, having a positive influence in the world, like, keep it up. And if there's certain skills you want to master, like, seek out to really master them, especially communication. Because the thing is, emojis are great, but not everybody's going to be a fan of those, especially in business communication. So seeking out to be a master communicator in multiple ways, especially when it comes to written communication, especially now where we have AI out there that can basically do copywriting for you, just about, if you're a business owner, as well as public speaking. Being able to speak in public and communicate with other people is also very important, because a lot of people still fear public speaking. It used to be the top fear. It probably still is in the top 3, because the old joke is the person giving the eulogy sometimes would rather switch places with the person in the casket because they don't like talking in front of people. So if you can really seek to become a master communicator with written and verbal communication, and bonus points, picking up body language, being able to read that. On top of that, that'll definitely give you an edge and always seek to polish your skills no matter what. Because the thing is, we are in a generation of really the attention management age where everything's vying for your attention in so many different ways from so many different directions that if you can master your focus, you can eventually master your life.
Wow. Powerful stuff. You're right about the eulogy. To me, that is the highest honor anyone can ever get, is being asked to do someone's eulogy. And I've had that opportunity on several occasions. It's amazingly touching when they can ask anyone. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying that these families felt comfortable enough with me that they would allow me to do a eulogy. Now I have a difficult time doing it. I'll be honest with you, man. I've never had a eulogy that I didn't break down, because for obvious reasons. But yeah, you're right, man. Sometimes to get up there, you'd rather be the guy in a casket. I gotta remember that one down. You have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of published authors throughout your career and climbing. What are some of your favorite lessons, as you were talking about mentors? What are some of your favorite lessons that you gained or learned from some of these interviews that you've done? I find it so so much fun and interesting interviewing people, especially people that I have never met before. It's amazing. But what are kind of your favorite moments in all of those interviews?
Oh man, there's so many to count, too many to count, as some would say, but definitely one of the funny moments was actually an episode I had with a fellow podcast host. He had this book called Beacons of Leadership that he was promoting, and we had so much of a fun time. And he actually dropped a story that he gave from an author buddy of his where he says, "Hey, like nobody's gonna read your book." And he's like, "What?" Like, nobody's gonna read your book. Like, nope, nobody's gonna read your book. Your friends and family, nope. It's gonna be the strangers that are gonna read your book and that are gonna enjoy it if they decide to purchase and buy it. And we just had so many laughs that time. I actually got a text from one of the listeners where he said, "Nah, don't do an episode like that ever again." I almost drove off the road because it was hilarious. We had so many great conversations last of that episode. And as for a takeaway from one of the guests, Sam Leibowitz, who wrote a book called Everyday Awakening, he basically had a nice shift on the gratitude journal because I'm sure a lot of folks may be familiar with gratitude and the power of gratitude, or even may have even watched The Secret back when it came out, or even after it came out, where you would write down three things you're grateful for every single day in a wonderful book and have that as your journal of gratitude. Well, some folks aren't a fan of those, especially those who have had to be in the real thick of the pandemic, and they're like, "Oh God, gratitude." Like, man, I'm working extra hard. Like, I have to be thankful for this moment, but I'm not really feeling thankful right in this darn thing. So basically seeing your gratitude journal as your victory log, tracking down your wins for the day, being able to wake up with all of your body being able to move, like full body movement, waking up, like that's a freaking win within itself because someone didn't wake up today. And if they did wake up today, there's probably somebody who doesn't have all their limbs. And if you have all your limbs and you can still move, that's a victory. Like making it to work on time, that's a victory for some folks, especially now we're no longer in essential worker traffic. I kind of missed that essential worker traffic because it was a ghost town on the road. I didn't have to worry about idiots on the road. Like just small things. Heck, even me being able to guest on your show with you, Mel, like that's a victory for me that I'm going to write down later today in my own victory log. And just doing that days on end, and you'll get that confidence boost because you have a wonderful journal, a primer of proof that you actually have done things in your life that you can look back on and just be thankful about that. So having a victory log is definitely one major tip that I still take with me, and that was, my goodness, 200 episodes ago.
Yeah, we are all guilty of taking things for granted. And as I get older, I start to appreciate things a lot more. That is so evident now. It is. It wasn't 10 years ago. It wasn't. I live in one of the most beautiful places on earth. I live a minute from the ocean, from the beach, and I live a minute from a trailhead that takes me up to one of our beautiful mountains here called the Sleeping Giant. I wake up every morning to that beautiful mountain and the ocean breeze. And I mean, and yet, we get up in the morning, get ready, get to work, and we forget about those little things that bring so much joy. And every so often we gotta stop and think about those things. Switching gears here, you're a reader. You love to read. Your bio says you're a voracious reader. I'm curious because I was never a reader. I didn't go to college until I was in my 40s, and obviously I was forced to read, but
Right.
because I had to. But I learned a lot more. I think the learning ability when you're in your 40s versus when you're just out of high school. I think I absorbed a whole lot more while I was reading. But interesting, again, in your reading up on you and libraries, you talk about libraries, and nowadays you can go to Google, you can download books, you can download ebooks. But is there a place for libraries in our world today, and why do you believe that libraries are how do you say it, full of gold? I think you said. Well, what's your
Yeah.
take on libraries?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Glad you asked that question. I'm glad more folks are asking that question because it's so darn true. Because the thing is, libraries are information sanctuaries because we still got humans in those buildings for a reason. AI hasn't taken over the humans yet. The robots haven't taken over us yet because, hey, from really diaper to diaper, as I jokingly say, from babies to the senior citizens, it's like, hey, you got babies, you want to build them up to be rapid learners who love to read, and those who may be up there in age who may have retired in the 90s, coming around to the millennium, 21st century, realizing, oh crap, I retired to escape the computer. Now I got to learn the darn thing because of inflation, and I got to go back to work, and they got to apply for jobs on these darn computers. Like I got to learn them, and just helping folks in the community. Heck, even during the pandemic, a few library systems, especially out in the Maryland area, were actual hubs for folks to have Wi-Fi because even though folks couldn't be in the building, the Wi-Fi was extended to the parking lots where folks could get high-speed internet. And we also were able to have about a good 40 to 200 Wi-Fi hotspots for folks to check out so that way they can have internet at home or wherever they are in the world. And even before the pandemic started, we had over 500 Chromebooks for folks to check out. So that way they were able to do their work and do them on Chromebooks on computers, these portable laptops that they can check out free of charge, all thanks to their tax dollars. And even more with their tax dollar usage, being able to feed hungry kids, like with school, the pandemic, like a lot of kids, sadly, the only time they got a chance to eat would be at school. And the thing was, we basically had to be hopes for families to pick up meals for their kids free of charge because of their tax dollars being and working helping out kids. So libraries, especially public libraries, are more community centers now that communities need to really level up in society because books are still great. It feels great to hold a book, but there's also other facets too that can help out our fellow human beings to succeed.
I have had the opportunity to speak to hundreds of people around the country over the last 3 years regarding the pandemic, and there are so many similarities. Just hearing you talk about the libraries and the Chromebooks, and we have the same problems. Everybody looks at Hawaii as being paradise, and well, I want to move to Hawaii. It's and what the outsiders do not see is the the social issues that we have, the crime and the poverty. It's rampant over here. They just came out where I live on the island of Kauai. They just came out with the new median home price from November, $1.7 million.
Mm.
Median.
Ouch.
Yeah. My wife and I went to the store, went to Fred Meyer in Oregon, and she did all her shopping, and for the week that we were there, and she was just blown away. Eggs and milk. Milk is $8 a gallon over here. $8 a gallon. And so when you talk about the kids having the schools as possibly the only place they actually get to eat. And when the schools shut down over here, so they're defeating. Obviously there were many organizations that stepped in, and of course the government monies came in, but this was a really rough time for so many people. And as you were saying, how do you stay positive, during these types of seasons in your life? Oh, it could be a pandemic, it could be a death of a loved one, it could be a loss of a job, a divorce. There's just so many things that people experience every single day. It's vital that we learn how to stay positive, and it's not always that simple. Introverts. I wanted your take on introverts. My son is an introvert. He wants to start a podcast. He's actually been a guest on my show a couple of times, and he does really well when he's not speaking in front of a group. When he's in front of a camera, not too bad. Little did he know, that thousands of people watched him. But what's your advice for someone that's not comfortable? I know you talked about joining the Toastmasters, but someone that's not comfortable with stepping outside their comfort zone, but have so much to give to the community. What's your advice to those guys?
Solid question indeed. And funny enough, actually had a guest earlier this year, Sean Tyler Foley, who mentioned that public speaking, especially on stage, is one of the most introverted things that you can do. Because the thing is, even though you're in front of a bunch of people, at the end of the day, you're kind of having just a one-on-one conversation with whoever's actually listening and paying attention to you. And it's kind of like a one way, really just a monologue, to be honest, unless you're really engaging on stage. And that's one of the reasons why I recommend Toastmasters to especially introverts, because the thing is, if you're in a low impact networking environment where you're in a group in your room, sometimes virtual nowadays, with like 10 to 20 other people with the same overall goal of just getting better at public speaking, you're definitely going to get confidence. And that's one of the biggest tools to help up level your confidence, is really public speaking and speaking in front of a crowd. And the fact that public speaking is actually an introverted thing. And the thing is, so another thing about introversion is the fact that being introverted doesn't mean you are antisocial. That's not what it means. It really depends on your energy. Extroverts get their energy from being around people. Introverts get their energy from resting and being just with themselves and being around less people. So it's really all about how you stay energized. And it's just really focusing on what gives you energy, knowing what gives you energy, and doing those things that keep you in your strength. So, like with hobbies, like podcasting can be a hobby for some folks, or even as a business tool, like heck, even with like Magic the Gathering cards. I know that can be a thing, even with people, even when they get into their college years and finding clubs and groups of folks who actually do that. Heck, even side hustles for those who may be even going into barbering, just being able to help folks to have good, clean heads. Like just finding things and finding what you're good at and staying in those zones of your greatness will help you to get that confidence as well, to really be more confident, because confidence really comes from within. It definitely comes from within.
Interesting. I do know a lot of introverts that don't appear to be introverts from the outside, because they are social people. They may not be as comfortable. I like how you put it. The extrovert gets the energy from being around people. That would be me. I love being around people, and I'm sure you're the same way. I love talking with people. I love hearing stories, and it makes it very easy for me to talk. In Hawaii, there's a joke. The Portuguese people, which I'm Portuguese, we have a problem with talking too much, and it's like the going joke over here in Hawaii. Uh, that's cool. I don't mind. I take that as a compliment because I just enjoy people so much. This pandemic has really isolated a lot of people, and people are having to relearn to be social, and it's affected a lot of people. My biggest concern is our kids because they
Oh,
were taken out of
yeah.
schools. There were that whole social component was taken away, and I shouldn't say taken away, but they weren't able to be social anymore because the distance learning, and I'm sure that was the case in Maryland as well. So I don't know if I hope we don't ever see a pandemic like this in our lifetimes again, but I'm sure it'll happen again, and we should be prepared for that, and our kids should be prepared for that. And what a great way to for our kids to be still productive by using the platforms available today and sharing stories and sharing experiences. I see a lot of kids on social media with some really unique and productive posts or tweets or whatever you call them. And I think it's changing society to some extent. A lot of it for the good, some not so. But what's your take on social media in general as it relates to our younger people?
I'd have to say definitely social media at the end of the day is a tool to be honest. It's a tool for me to connect with other people, especially marketing my brand and my business. But for the younger generation, the problem with social media is that it's built to really suck in your attention when kind of like early in the conversation mentioned earlier, that we're in the attention management era of living. Like it's no longer the information age, it's the attention management age. And the folks in Silicon Valley, heck, even the book I recommend folks to pick up, it's by the author named Nireyal, called Hooked, where they basically studied human behavior and built technology based off of that human behavior. And there was even articles years ago, back when Steve Jobs was still alive, when he actually wouldn't even put his kids near an iPad because he knew what the hell they were doing. Like they built these apps and these devices to take away your time. It's like, yeah, you're learning, but at the same time, it makes folks more irritable because you're in front of a screen for so long. So there's good and bad. Like at the end of the day, it's a great tool to use, but don't let that be your whole life. You still have to be face to face with people. And that's the thing, like with any parents listening, and heck, even anyone listening for that matter, is making sure you're around people face to face if you can, as much as possible, being out in nature as much as possible, and making sure you don't have screen time be the majority of your day, at least making sure you don't have a screen in front of you all the time and just taking in nature, because there's actual studies. I don't have the appropriate studies right in front of me right now, but there's actually been experiments done from even other writers where they mentioned that their family time, where they focus more on taking digital detox time of taking a few days away from technology, especially now that we're not in the peak COVID of 2020, where we're now in this era where, okay, we're getting back to next normal, where we can actually be around humans again. The behavior is actually a lot better and the patience is a lot more in their well, metaphorically, because it's like they're not in front of screens the whole time. And that's really what it's all about, making sure that your screen time isn't trumping the rest of your life, making sure you're still getting around other people, getting around nature, so that way you'll be more well-rounded and less irritable.
Less irritable. That's the key. A friend of mine who owns a car dealership over here said, "Mel, these guys come in for interviews. They cannot even speak. They just have no communication skills anymore. Maybe I should have had my interview via text." And while he was joking, that's the sad reality of the world we live in today.
Yeah.
These kids just simply cannot communicate. And I'm not sure if how that changes. I really like your position on books and getting kids in the books at a young age. So by the time they can make the choice, they'll still enjoy reading, and they'll read more than hit the phones or iPads. You cannot go to a restaurant today or any event outdoors and see families hanging around together, all with their eyes on their phone. It's kind of sad, really, where we used to. I mean, my generation anyway. We grew up outdoors. We always went to beaches and parks, and nowadays everybody just hangs out at home and shares Instagram stories and reels and everything else. Sad.
Yeah.
Dom, your books. I'm sure they're available. Where can our listeners get a hold of your books, man?
Sure thing. Of course, Amazon.com, that's the default option, as well as Barnes& Noble, Walmart, anywhere books are sold. Like, hey, if there's a place that sells books, definitely ask for copies, even if it's your local bookstore, and especially a local library, too. Like, hey, if local libraries have copies, ask them for it. If local bookstores can get their hands on it, too, definitely ask them to get their hands on it, too, because we should definitely support and continue to support small businesses, especially bookstores in your neighborhood, so that way they can stay in business as long as possible, because we still need them. We still need them. Amazon's great and all, it's convenient, but it comes at an inconvenience to the folks right in your own neck of the woods. So wherever books are sold, grab some copies of it, and you can find out more info on dombrightmon.com as well. And there's also a free gift on there too about starting, growing, and launching a successful podcast as well. So you can find all that on dombrightmon.com.
Yeah, I'm on my way there, buddy. All of the links are going to be in the description and the notes, the show notes. So please, folks, go grab a couple of these books and study, read, give them to your kids, man. Give them to your kids. Get them on the right track. It's been a pleasure, man. I do want to give you an opportunity to share with the world whatever you want, man. Just words of wisdom from Dom.
Well, before that, never hesitate to show gratitude. So thank you, Mel, for having me on your podcast, man. Feed your mind. Definitely feed your mind every single day with something good. It's like, hey, like those good old leafy green vegetables. Like as a kid, you hate them, but you grow old and realize, man, you need them, and you grow to love them or at least tolerate them. So continue to feed your mind with positivity, encouragement, and remind yourself that you definitely matter. No matter where you are in the part of the world, like remind yourself that you truly matter, and get around folks that can help remind you of that too. Because we're in a day and age where we really need each other, and we need to be around other people who are going to encourage and inspire us to not only do what we need to do, but also to go for more. So remind yourself that you truly matter, and to really encourage somebody today. Heck, I'll even close off with a challenge, like find 5 random people and give them some words of encouragement, or even compliment them on something. Just encourage 5 random people today, and they'll definitely appreciate it.
It doesn't take much to lighten somebody's day. It doesn't take much. A good friend of mine, a mentor, once told me, he says, Mel, you're going to become the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And that is so true. You want to be a winner, then hang around winners. If you want to be a loser, then hang around the losers. I teach my kids this. You hang around the people that you want to be like-minded people. But I accept your challenge, and it's still early here in Hawaii. It's only 4:39 p.m. So I will go out and share gratitude with 5 people once we're done with this interview. I appreciate you, my man. I thank you for being a part of the show. I will again post up all of the links. Guys, get connect with Dom, and this guy's a great man. I can tell. He's just short time we had together, but I picked up all the nuggets, my friend. I'll be a better person tomorrow because of this interview, and I appreciate you for that. I wish you well in 2023. God bless you and your family. And in Hawaii, we say a hui ho. which means
Ooh.
until we meet again. To our
I
listeners,
like
thank
it.
you for joining us. Yeah, a hui ho. Yeah, go ahead and use this, Dom. A hui ho.
A hui ho.
Bingo. You said it perfectly. It means until we meet again. And maybe you can put that in your next book. So to our listeners out there, a hui ho. Until next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. We love you all. You take care.